Hey everybody, Pastor Tom here. Hey, I just want to touch bases with everybody. It's Thursday morning, full lockdown, Spokane, Washington, coronavirus. And woke up this morning, I just spent some time in prayer. And one of the things I was really pondering and thinking about is like, this has really brought out the best in a lot of people. And it's really got us more focused on Christ and ideas. But one of the things I found in life is there's like three different kinds of Christians. And we can get in the ditch with two of them, and kind of down the center is really that narrow road that Christ has called us to walk. And one of the ditches we can get in, I kind of call them Facebook Christians. And these are people that they like the idea of God, they believe in God, they love it when there's an inspirational quote and they'll forward it. And they're probably pretty socially active. Like if there's a need or there's something they can do to help somebody that's a friend or in their group, they're going to do it. And, you know, they're actually really cool people, and I've got a lot of friends that fall into this category. The challenge is because like the depth of their relationship with God is really at a Facebook level. It's like they're more acquainted with the quotes about him than they are really him. And unfortunately, what this group of people does is when we get frustrated or we get challenged, we get into our flesh and we kind of go back to who we were, and suddenly everything about God goes out of the way, and we're the guy driving down the road with the cross on, or the three crosses on his bumper sticker, and somebody cuts us off and we give them the middle finger. I mean, that is not what we're called to be, and a good person doesn't really get you to heaven. So the other ditch that a lot of us fall into is, I call them super Christians. These are the people that we get fired up and we want to chase God. We want to know everything there is to know about him. We start going to church 5-6 days a week. And that group of people is really kind of the first social distancers that we had. These people will socially distance themselves from anybody in the real world because they don't want to get tarnished, and they don't want to have people that are rubbing on them that might affect their walk with God. And that term where people they came out with one time, I heard, not one time, I've heard it a lot, and they say that you're so heavenly minded, you're no earthly good. What they're talking about is this group of people, like we can quote 10,000 scriptures, and if somebody doesn't feel well, we're like, by the stripes of Jesus, you need to be healed. And we almost turn people off with our knowledge of the scriptures because we've never really become acquainted with God. We know a lot about him. And we want to take the knowledge that we know about him, and we're going to let everybody know what we know. And if you don't agree with us, then you're going to hell, and that's just the way it is. And that's a bad ditch to be in too, because again, it doesn't really fulfill our purpose. Our purpose on this earth, if you have made a decision that I call Jesus my Lord, I'm going to repent from my sins, repent from the way that I used to live, and I'm going to follow him. That's what qualifies you as a Christian, and that's like the first step. But then from that point, we're called to actually know him. We're called to actually learn what it is to walk in the Spirit. In fact, Romans chapter 8 says that those that are led by the Spirit of God shall be called the sons of God. Not those that prayed a prayer at summer camp and never did anything with it, or those that forward Facebook posts to their friends, they're going to be called the sons of God. Or those that can quote hundreds of scriptures, they're going to be called the sons of God. No, it's those that are led by the Spirit of God are going to be called the sons of God. And what does that look like? Well, James, who's the brother of Jesus, summed it up this way in James chapter 2, and I think it's great. He says, listen, a lot of people say that they believe in God, but here's the deal. Even the demons believe in God and shudder at his name. So believing in God isn't enough. So can that kind of faith save a man? No. It's faith with action that saves a person. So the more I get to know God, the more I go to pursue God, the more I learn how to hear his voice, then that should compel me to go out into the world and do something with it. If you look at the life of Jesus, he actually categorically spent more time with sinners than he did hanging out with the Pharisees. And the Pharisees, or the super Christians of that time, were the people that he were getting on because they knew everything to do, but they weren't really doing it. So I want to challenge you. We've got some time. We're in quarantine maybe right now, or maybe you're living in a town where you're not in quarantine, but like you've got extra hours. And I can't tell you how many people said, man, if I just had more time, I would read my Bible. If I had more time, I'd spend time in prayer. Well, you got more time right now. Get to know the God, the creator of the universe. Learn what it is to hear his voice. In fact, if you don't know how to hear him, here's your first step. Get with yourself alone in a room and ask God this question: Lord, do you love me? And then be quiet and listen on the inside of your heart, and that'll be the voice that you hear. If you've called on Jesus, you've heard him talk to you before, because that's what made you want to become a Christian in the first place. But it's not just enough to become a Christian. We've actually got to begin to do the will and display the will of God on this earth, which means not because it's a socially active, great thing to do right now. We do what we do because God is leading us. We help our neighbors who are in need, not because we're going to get accolades for it. We help our neighbors who are in need because he loves our neighbors and he put us here to be the answer to their prayers. But in being an answer to their prayers, it's not just giving them toilet paper or giving them food. It's actually sitting down, and to those that are open, we begin to tell them about the Jesus that we know. I'm going to give you one last thought. One of my very close friends made this comment to me, and it stirred me up and continued to stir me this day. They said this: Tom, we should have such an intimate relationship with Jesus that people see that relationship and they envy us for it. They envy us to the place to where they want to know him the way we know him. Let me ask you a question. Do you have that kind of relationship with Jesus? If the answer is yes, that's awesome. Continue to do what you're doing. Continue to touch people and spend time with your Father. If the answer is no, then go find somebody that is like what you want to be. Somebody who knows Christ, who prays, and it seems like God answers their prayers, and there's communion. They're not flaky, but they have a relationship with him. And ask them, how did you get where you need to go? That's called becoming a disciple, and that's what we're called to do. Go make disciples, and to make disciples, you got to become a disciple. So I want to challenge you today. What kind of Christian are you? Don't be a Facebook Christian, and don't be a super Christian, but be a follower of Christ that knows how to hear his voice and is led by him and have the actions to prove that relationship. Hey guys, I love you. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.